Hey guys, how you doing? It is T110e5 or TheFrXion, and today we are taking a look at the T110e5, my personal favorite tier 10 heavy tank in the game. This is one of the two tier 10 American heavy tanks, and I'm just gonna show you right now. This tank and the other tier 10 American heavy tank is the T57, which is by a lot of aspects pretty much the best tier 10 overall in the game. But we will first now take a look at the E5 T110 E5. Yeah, so World of Tanks has come a long way, 3 years now. Last week I made a video about the IS-7, and the E5 wasn't around as soon as the IS-7. That doesn't make it any less great or good in that aspect, but it came out later than the IS-7. This tank was a replacement for the I'm sure pretty much a lot of you guys will remember that, for the T30, which was the T10 tier 10 heavy tank. Back in the days, the T30 was the tier 10. Horrible hull armor, but a great gun, of course. I still love it. I loved it when it was a tier 10. I still love it now. And the T34, which all of the people who had it as a tier 9 got it as a tier A premium tank, and that was put out for the M103 heavy tank. That's pretty much how the E5 came into World of Tanks. It was at the beginning of World of Tanks, an amazing vehicle, pretty much unbeatable. And by the looks of it, if you look at the tank, it looks fairly beautiful. It is not as big as the IS-7 from the height. It's of course a lot higher set than the IS-7, but from the length, the E5 is shorter, which can be a pro and a contra. Well, actually, it's just a pro. For you, you have a less, you have a smaller target. Pretty much, you're a smaller target. For enemies, it's not as great, but for you, you're a smaller target. It's hard to hit you, but still, your tank is a little bit higher. And of course, there is still the armor factor, to which we will get pretty soon. So, heavy tank T110e5. Development started in early 1950s. Restrictions were placed on the vehicle's sizing as the tank was supposed to pass through the narrow tunnels of the Bernese Alps. Existed only in blueprints. So this tank should have been able to cross the Alps in Switzerland to get to the battlefields somewhere in Europe, and that's why it wasn't allowed to be a big tank or a really big variant. So you have 2,200 HP if you compare this to the IS-7 or the E100, which is the German counterpart. We're not taking a look at the MOS right now. You have 50 more HP than the IS-7 and 500 less than the E100. We'll just let it open right now so we can take a look at those tanks individually and compare them. So you got a weight load limit of 60 tons, so that makes you the lightest tier 10 tank right here. This is probably because of the small size. If you compare it to the IS-7 and the E100, the E100 is almost triple the weight, and the IS is 10 tons heavier. So the difference is that this tank has an engine that has a lot less horsepower than the IS-7 and the E100, which actually is kind of weird. Well, it is a small tank, so it is hard to get a good, really big engine in there. You have to have place. You can only put the engine right back there. You have to have enough space for the crew, for the ammunition, and all that stuff. So they probably couldn't fit in the best engine. So you are stuck with 875 horsepower engine, which is decent but not amazing. If you compare that to the IS-7 that has a 1050 horsepower engine, or the E100 that has a 1200 horsepower engine. Of course, the E100 needs it because of the weight, and the IS-7 just is a all-round fast heavy tank. That also resembles in the speed limit that this tank is not the fastest tier 10 heavy tank. With only 37 kilometers, it's okay. It's in the mid area. It's in the midfield. It's not as fast as the IS-7 with 59.6, but still it's decent. So the traverse speed, you have a 30 degrees per second traverse speed on this tank, which is fairly normal, I guess. It's okay. And if you compare it to the IS-7, it's only 2 degrees per second better, but 8 degrees per second better than the E100s. So you'll be able to turn, but don't expect to be able to turn in time for a T62 that's circling you. So it's good for the normal belts, but if you're going up one-on-one against a medium, you'll probably not be the dominant one, but you'll be able to catch up. So let's go over to the hull armor. So this tank is special. The hull armor, the frontal armor, is 254 millimeters thick. So if you look at this, it's much more than the IS-7. It's 50 millimeters more than the E100. But there's the but. The big minus is that this tank here, that only this frontal part right here is 254 millimeters. So actually, you can easily, a lot of people pen you just by hitting right here. This commander's the viewports. They can hit the viewports. You can pen them with gold. Some even pen you with gold at the headlights right in front. But the one big minus is this huge lower plate, which is definitely not 254 millimeters thick. If you look at the IS-7, let's look at the E100. You know that the E100 has a 200 millimeter frontal plate, and nothing goes through here. Nothing. But down here, everybody can pen it, except if you're angling your tank. If you angle your tank correctly, you can bounce. But with this tank, since it's not a perfect 90-degree angle downwards, it is rather hard to be able to bounce stuff up front if they shoot your lower plate. So one of the things, you need to hide your lower plate, and we'll get to the next big minus of this tank. So the IS-7's frontal plate is really small. It does only have 150 millimeters of armor, but 150 millimeters of really great angled armor. So up front, you cannot pen this area, this area. You maybe can pen this viewport right here if you have gold ammo. You can pen the lower plates, but still it's really hard to pen this lower plate, because first off, if he moves up a little bit, you will shoot this part right here, and this is going to be a definite bounce. Or if you're unlucky, because of the perfect angling, you're going to just bounce off downwards. So there's a really slim chance on the E5 that you will bounce stuff down here. So one of the big minuses. So if you're playing a E5, try to hide your lower plate. If you're playing against the E5, go have fun with the lower plate. Just ignore this upper part. So now we come to the turret. Yeah, the turret. 203 millimeters up front. That sounds amazing, just like the frontal armor, but that's just stats. That's pretty much the thickest part of the armor, and that's only about this frontal part right here. You will still get panned. That's pretty much the biggest weak spot of this tank. The biggest weak spot of the tier 10 ever is this cupola. Everybody's gonna shoot this cupola. Every single one is gonna shoot this cupola and is gonna go pen it. It is so hard to bounce off this cupola. It's pretty much impossible. this is one of the biggest weak spots, and you can do damage you wouldn't believe. So if you're on a one-on-one situation in a E5, you have to wiggle, you have to try to get them to shoot your lower plate instead of your freaking cupola. But usually the people know that got the tier 10s, they know the weak spots of other tier 10s, so they're gonna shoot the cupola anyhow. So the biggest weak spot of the T10, the T110e5, T110e5. It's pretty much the biggest weak spot of all. So if you're going over, even if you're maybe let's say he's got his cupola hidden, I'm not sure how, but let's say there's something in front of the cupola and he's only showing you his frontal turret, this part, you can still shoot through the cheeks right here. That's pretty much really bad armor right there, but you have to get a perfect shot, and if you do that, you will pen him, but it's not a definite pen like the cupola. So if you're playing an E5, get the hell away from pretty much, you will have a hell of a bad time with the cupola. It's pretty much impossible to hide it if you're playing against the E5 and you're up close. Just wreck him with the cupola. It's a definite pen most of the time. Now let's get to the side armor. The side turret armor with 127mm is actually decent, but still it is pretty damn easy to pen because of the angling. It's not like the IS-7 turret where it's all a perfect surface, a round surface where everything will bounce. It is more of a 80-60 degrees flat surface where you can definitely shoot through pretty easy, so don't be shy. The back of the turret is pretty much 70mm, non-existent. You'll bounce if you just shoot down here, and if you're unlucky the shell goes down here and bounces. And also the back of the E5. This tank has ridiculous armor on its ass. All the other tanks, the E100 has a 150mm on the rear, so you cannot pen it with HE. Even the IS-7 has 100mm on the rear. But this tank has only 38mm, so shoot HE, try to hide your ass, never be backwards against the enemy in an E5, never ever. If you're at E100, you're facing E5, and he's giving his ass to you, just shoot its engine with HE. It is gonna be a definite high explosive damage hell in there, so just try to do that. Now we come to the thing that actually makes this tank awesome. So also let's go to the side armor real fast. The side armor is only 76mm. I forgot that, sorry about that. And it is gonna be a definite pen. Try to shoot in between the tracks, or the first track and the last track. It is a lot easier, and you will definitely get a pen and damage. It's not gonna be one of those freaking no pen, no damage, and the tracks absorb that shit. Just shoot in between the tracks and you'll be good. So let's go to the standard damage that this tank makes with its shell. So first off, you need to know what kind of gun is this tank using. It is using a 120mm gun M58. This gun is also on the M103 and is one hell of an amazing gun. It is accurate. It is beautiful. It has a good rate of fire. It is very consistent. So let's take a look at all of the guns. So we got the 150mm cannon of the E100, 150mm gun, the 120mm of the E5 in the middle, and the IS-7 130mm on the right as 70. So caliber wise, this gun is the smallest of all the tanks, but rate of fire wise, this is pretty much the tank with the fastest firing gun, pretty much. It shoots double the rounds of the E100 in a minute. It shoots 6 rounds per minute, while the E100 only shoots 3. It shoots 1.62 rounds more than the 130 millimeter, and it has a better pen than the E100 and the IS7, even though it's only by 8 millimeter on the IS7 and by about 23 on the E100. You will shoot AP, heat, and HE, high explosive. So the AP has the best pen, the heat round have the best pen too, and the HE have the least amount of pen because of the smaller caliber. So with heat rounds, you have 340 millimeters of pen. Pretty much you can just pen anything, even though with 258 you're pretty damn good already. The thing is, the drawback is the average damage that you make. I can tell you by experience, it is not 400. You'll be most of the time in the upper 300, 370s, 380, 390, but you most of the time won't do 500 damage. I have only gotten about, I'm not sure, I played this tank for hundreds of matches, and I've only gotten really few games where I did 500 damage in one shot. So don't expect 500 damage per shot, but expect about 400. Yeah. But the thing is, which is kind of frustrating, that you do a lot of damage in the higher 300s. So you do have a higher fire rate, but you do a lot less damage. So that kind of evens out. But the thing is that this gun is a lot more accurate than the other guns. Also, the aiming time is a lot less. The aiming time is really a lot less than the IS7 and the E100. That's why pretty much this tank is the perfect sniper tank in my opinion. The thing is that even though the E5 doesn't have the best armor, 254 is great up front, but still there are those huge weak spots. You can really brawl if you know how to angle your tank. If you really know how to play this tank, you can really destroy the enemy team. And this is one of the things this is why I enjoy this tank so much. So let's take a look at my stats in the E5. It's pretty much my third most played tank. 54%, could be better, but still is pretty okay in my opinion. Let's take a look. I have 464 wins and 368 defeats. Of those 857 battles, I only survived 291. That's because I'm a hell of a lot aggressive. My hit ratio is 82%, which is pretty high. My maximum experience per battle is 1,866. That has to do, I could have had a lot more damage or a lot more experience if I would run premium, but I don't have premium most of the time. The maximum destroyed per battle are 9 tanks. It's decent, but I think 12, 13 would be better. Maximum damage since 8.8. I haven't played this tank a lot. 5,634 damage. Not that great in my opinion. Enemy vehicles destroyed. Now let's take a look at this. 1,169, and I was destroyed 566 times in those matches. So the destruction rate is 2.07. The damage rate is 2 million to 1.54. The average experience is 621. Damage cost to vehicles 241. 2,421. Damage received 1,700. So in my opinion, it's pretty it's okay. It could be better, but pretty like okay stats. Let's say it like this. So the turret traverse speed of this tank is a lot better than the turret traverse of the IS7 and the E100. The turret traverse speed is 32, and if you compare it, 20 only on the E100 and 25 only on the IS7. So if a medium is circling you, you will definitely be able to shoot the medium. He may circle you, and you can only turn your whole tank as fast with a speed of 30 degrees per second, but still you'll be able to shoot him because of the 32 degrees per second turret traverse speed. The view range is pretty standard, 400 meters for all the tanks. Signal range is pretty much unimportant with 745, which is pretty much the standard I think on all the tanks. a little bit higher than the 100 and a little bit higher than the IS-7, but you will not have a big difference because there will be a lot of allies running in the game and they will send the information back to you. So let's see. This tank, I had a lot of awesome battles in it. It is my favorite tier 10 heavy tank. Even though it has some pretty big flaws, it is amazing, and I really enjoy this tank. Definitely, it has kind of gotten a little bit worse since the arrival of the 57, the autoloaders pretty much, and just the buffing of the 100 and the armor in general. So, what I have, let's take a look at the equipment. See what I've got on there. So I got improved ventilations, better crew skills for all my for my entire crew. Pretty standard. Large caliber gun rammer, pretty standard too. It reduces the reload time and is pretty much one of the things I would recommend to anybody. Then I could have had enhanced gun laying drive in this tank, but with 2 seconds aiming time, this is pretty much unnecessary. But if you still want to put it on, quicker aiming time is never a bad thing. It is always a good thing, and put that on if you want to. I have a heavy spall liner since the spall liners are so good since the last update, and since I'm most of the time target of the artillery, I really like the spall liner. Of course, if you have an E100, definitely put a spall liner on here. I don't have a spall liner on here because I had a big problem right there. I couldn't put it over, and yeah, so really get a spall liner if you don't know what to do. Spall liner and a few other things. So let's take a look at my my selection of rounds. Ammo was pretty cheap with 1,000 per shot, 4,400 standard for heat round. Usually I go with about, let's switch this up a little bit. I go with about 10 heat rounds and 33 AP rounds. I think you'll be doing pretty good with that amount of rounds. You have more shells than the IS-7 and you have more shells than the E100. No, actually E100 has the most shells because it just has such a big load. And I'm running a fire extinguisher and small repair kit, pretty much just a standard. So I've told you all about the specs, the things about this tank, and most importantly, what looks best on this tank. No. And now I think it is time for battle. So I will switch over to the battle screen and let's see how this tank performs on the battlefield. So I got a game for you guys. I actually got 2 games to show you right now what the E5 can do. They're not extreme high damage games, but they just should show you the impressive or very good qualities of the E5 and how you should try to play this tank, or how you shouldn't in some cases. So this is all recorded gameplay of recent games. I didn't have any old gameplays of the E5 except for the ones I uploaded on my YouTube channel, which were about, I'm not sure, months old already. So yeah, E5, we're playing on Himmelstor. First of all, as already said before, this tank does not have the best armor. It does have a 254mm frontal armor, but still there's this huge lower plate and the biggest weak spot of them all, the cupola. And how to evade all these stuff is actually pretty hard sometimes. It actually has to do with positioning. You really have to know the maps, and it's really important that you know the perfect spots where you can set up ambushes. This tank, as already said, is a really good sniper tank. Very fast aiming time of only 2 seconds, and a really good pen, actually. Okay pen. So as you can see right there, I shoot the Leopard PTA, hit the turret. I think I hit the gun mantlet, that's why I bounced. But still, that I hit the PTA is still a nice thing. Also the reload is pretty nice too. The first couple of shots I missed. I wasn't playing. I didn't pay that much attention. Wasn't that concentrated, and it shows you just how fast you can aim in with this tank. It's the problem is just if you have too many zoom levels, you sometimes just mess up a little bit. So, as you can see, my team is pushing the hill, the enemy team is pretty much pushing the hill, and we got some on the ground and some on top of going to the castle. So what I'm doing right here is I don't like to go up to the castle in this tank, even though it has a moderate speed with a max speed of 37 kilometers per hour. But I rather stay down here. So if you see right there, I just bounced the Leopard prototype. The thing is that you really have to be careful in this tank. If you are engaging enemy tanks, you best angle your armor to them. Always angle your armor in any tank. And the thing is that since the sides are so weak on this tank, only I think 76 millimeter. And right there I got hit on the turret from the hill by the 57. You really have to be careful how you angle your armor. So right there you have this this really nice view of the tank, how it is able to really put in those shots, and how you can really aim fast. And now you can see that I'm bouncing off my turret. So the turret of this tank is actually pretty good, except for the cupola, of course. So you can see I'm bouncing. I've bounced 2 shots on the cupola, but most of the time that's only luck, because cupolas, if he hits it really square 90 degrees right on, you will not bounce, and that is most certain one of the biggest drawbacks of this tank. The gun is amazing, the reload time is amazing, the speed is moderate, the turning time is pretty nice too. Also, you cannot get flanked pretty easily by mediums. You can always turn your turret and your hull, but the big drawback is still this huge cupola on top and the lower plates. So as you can see, my team, they're pretty much advancing on all fronts. They've pushed the 8 line. Been a little bit too aggressive now. They been stuck right there, and I've been trying to move up right here and help my team. So unfortunately I don't get the 54 right there, but I keep on moving up. So even though this tank is more of a sniper tank, you can still use it. Really bad driving skills by me, just right there, just want to point it out. You can still use it as a brawling tank. So if you know how, if you just wiggle and are very careful and you time your movements to the enemies, you can really bounce a lot of shells. And this tank actually quite delivers if you play correctly. Even against lower tiers, you'll be most definitely very well or in a very good spot with going up and brawling against them. But in higher tiers, I am not entirely sure. If you're going up against E100, you'll have a hard time. You'll probably be able to take him out, but still you'll have a hard time with him being able to pen your cupola, and everybody's shooting gold rounds in pretty much all of the tier 10 matches. I'm gonna stop it real fast. You can see I only did, okay, I did 3,502 damage. That's okay, but the thing is, you can see that all those shots, like most of the time you only get really low rolls for a 120mm cannon. This is really low roll. 421 for the biggest or most damage, and 383, 369 and 367 for tier 10. That's actually pretty damn low. That's one of the other drawbacks of this tank, but you do have the fast reload time. So I'll show you the next gameplay, and let's move over there. So this is the second battle. This is on the map. Okay, why is my... Okay, there it works. It's on the map secret line, and you can tell from XVM the teams are pretty much even, and it should be a fair fight for both teams. So pretty much in this gameplay I'm gonna show you the importance of positioning and going up against the same tier and lower tiers, and you can see just how well this tank performs, or on which level it has some problems. So if you're going up with the E5 on this map, just like any map, you really have to choose your position well. It's not the mobility of the tank that is going to make is going to give you a big problem. It's more or less the enemy tanks that will be able to pen your cupola or your lower plate if you're not careful. So what I really like to do on this map most of the time is to go to F7 and right here in this road. Even on the other side, I like to do the same and shoot any of the guys that come right down through this road. So this, actually, I'm not sure, but I think this is pretty much a great spot, but you shouldn't do it because for me it's one of those spots I really like to go to. For me it's a great spot, but it is actually a pretty horrible spot because artillery can easily kill you, and you really shouldn't trade damage with other tanks if you can avoid it. So right there, I said I should move away because there was a 5120 right next to me, and I did not want to sit right next to this guy and then get blocked by him. So this is one of my most favorite spots on this map for engagements in the city because you're pretty much centralized. This place right here, right next to this, is it a church? I think it's a church. And between those buildings, you can easily take out any targets from this range here and still have cover from this side, and take out all the enemies over there. And you can still move over and shoot the targets from from here over there. But the one drawback is if the enemies control E6, which they usually do, you'll have enemies over there and they'll be shooting you in the ass or your frontal armor. So you have to look and see if your team does spot anything over there and if you're willing to take the risk to go to this spot. But this is one of the spots for E5. This is just a great spot, and really if you're engaging a target, always put your armor or your tank face your tank in their direction. So I should have first off, I didn't point my tank at that direction. I was probably busy, but that's one of the things you always have to do because this tank has such weak side armor, and it is really important. And right there I should have actually tracked the low. You can see we didn't do much damage, 400 and 396, but still together it did about 800 damage, and just the fast reload time of this tank really make it a dangerous enemy for the enemy. So right here, I was just waiting, and kind of took a shot at the KV4, saw him reload, and really wanted to take a shot. So even though I knew the risk of taking that shot, I still took it. So as I see that spot over there isn't really good anymore for me, I turn over, and right now I know the enemy is trying to push. First off, they're trying to push the field, and second off, they're trying to push the city up in the center and over here. So I tried to take out the low, had a perfect shot, but I still had to aim. Even though you still have a 2-second aim time, you should really take your time most of the time. And right there, IS-3 on the run. So I'm backing up right now. There's a Tiger 2. I see him over there, and I know I can poke through here because I see a red lining, but I unfortunately miss him. And that's one of the things in this tank. The aim time is so fast. You can really just aim at those guys and shoot any second. And now you can really see what you can do if an enemy is showing his side, or you can hit the weak spot. And That's pretty much here. You see a tortoise coming past, and he's just driving really aggressively. And what you really should do is track the enemy with this gun. You'll be able to definitely do a lot of damage. Track him, shoot him, and then reload and pull back, because you don't want to get shot. So the IS-3 was brave enough to poke out, and he got one of the shots. Unfortunately, it bounced right there, and he got one of the shots in. And you can see I just bounced the IS-3, and you can see that against lower tier targets you'll have no problem with this tank, but against tier 9s and tier 8s that are shooting gold, tier 10s, you'll have a really bad time. I think I'm gonna make a compilation of times I got shot by artillery in this tank. I played this tank I played 30 matches in the last 3 days with this tank, because I wanted to do this video, and really in those 30 matches I got hit by artillery at least 20 times. And I think I'm gonna make a compilation to that. So right now the thing is that you need to have perfect positioning, and you will need to learn the perfect timing. So you have to know when to push and when to pull back. This is one of the main important aspects next to positioning. If you don't know when to push, you'll maybe miss a huge chance to get damage, to do damage, or even to win the game, because you failed to push and you were too slow to realize that you were being surrounded. Or if you're too fast, you just push like crazy, you get into really bad spots, and the enemies will be able to pick you off really easily. So right there, E4, luckily for me, I bounced him. That would have been a really hard hit. Right now, Angry Armor, you can see you bounce some of them, especially on the lower part right here. You'll bounce some of the shots, and this guy was doing it right. He was really hugging that side, and now you can see the main weak spot of this tank. The rear armor, there's pretty much non-existing. Don't expect to bounce anything on any tank. Don't expect to bounce anything on any tank, but especially on this one. You'll definitely get your engine hit, and the fire is not very common in my opinion. Ammo wrecks are not really common, but still it is really annoying when your engine gets hit and it burns. So unfortunately I just bounced on the T110e5, but you can make it up. You can see he bounced off me too, and right now if you're in a E5 you have no trouble. You can just take him out pretty easily, and that's pretty much the game. And now you can see I'm stuck here, but I've a very good crew. That means my repairs are going to be really fast. So if you really, this tank is one of the tanks that is probably for guys that have patience, that know the map, that are really that like snipers, and you can even brawl. It's like a multi-purpose tank. In my opinion, it's still my favorite tank, but the thing is that there are so many better tanks out there. So right now you can see the bad chat, and you can see the bad chats. We have 2 bad chats, and they pretty much have all the kills of the entire team. That is, first of all, because they're autoloaders, and second of all, because they just steal the kills. This bad chat really, I mean, it's the thing. The autoloaders in this game really make it a bit unbalanced. And yeah, you can see I just got hit by artillery. That's one of the things that has been happening to me recently really often, and it sucks, I tell you guys. It really sucks. And this spall liner really helps. If you don't have any other equipment, pull it on a spall liner. It's gonna help you a lot. So where was I? Pretty much the T110e5, awesome tank. So who can I say who could use the E5? I think this tank is pretty much one of the tanks that a lot of people like. It's small, it's compact, it's fast, or moderately fast for a heavy tank. It does have a good gun. It doesn't do the alpha damage that like the TDs do, or E100 does, but you have to fire gold in the E100. But you could see right here, I didn't have any troubles with any of the tanks, so I wasn't using any gold rounds in this round. But I had a couple of games where I had to use gold rounds, especially if you're going up only against TDs or heavies in tier 10. Against Jackzillas you'll need gold, against the E4 you'll need gold from time to time if he's only showing you his turret. E3 definitely sometimes you'll need gold, and you know, it's just one of those things. But this tank really, since it has come out, it has been nerfed a great deal. It was so powerful back then. I still remember the time when it came out. It was the best tank on the market, and even the E100 that was better than now back then was not as good as the E5. So this tank, it kind of got a little bit worse, and the competition has grown really fierce around the heavy tanks since the arrival of those auto-loading heavy tanks, auto-loading tank destroyers, auto-loading medium tanks, artillery that can freaking one-shot you, and it's just one of those things. I'm not sure if this tank is still worth it. For me, it's entirely worth it. I love this tank. It is one of those tanks that I can play with immediately, and I can have great matches for 10 matches in a row, and I still won't get bored of it. I mean, there's still the fun factor. You'll need to have the fun factor too. In my opinion, this tank, if the fun factor is one of the things, I would say 9 out of 10 fun facts. 9 out of 10. And the multi-purpose, the turret, the armor is pretty damn good, except for those weak spots. You'll just have to need to learn how to play this tank, and you'll be doing good. So if you want to counter this tank, just shoot the turret, the cupola up there. Even if you angle your turret just a little bit, shoot the turret right here. Lower plate, no problem. Side and back. This tank is pretty easily to pen. You'll encounter a lot of those tanks, E5s, because they are, well, a lot of people like them. And yeah, but I would say since the arrival of the heavy tanks, I'm not sure. Autoloaders have a really large role now, and since the arrival of the 57 in particular, I would say the 57 is a bit better than this tank. You can really fast, you can in 20 seconds you can reload a 4-round clip, and you have 4 shots of these rounds. It's the exact same gun, I think, and you can shoot more. You have a better higher alpha, but your turret is a little bit less good or less armored. So get this tank if you want it. It's one of my favorites. It's definitely not a bad tank, but also since the arrival of tank destroyers and autoloaders, if you want alpha damage, don't take this tank. Go for a Waffenträger or for a E4, E3. Jackzilla was also a pretty good tank destroyer. So I hope you guys like this what to expect of the E5 and video, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.